at Miller Kaplan for 15 years, and I've been in some form of public accounting for 35 years, I think now. So that dates me a little bit. I have to think about that. But in any event, one of the areas my firm kind of got involved with, we have a number of niches that we practice in, and we have about 225 people spread amongst the West Coast of the U.S., I guess Rocky Mountains and to the West. But one of the things that we got involved with a few years ago, probably 10, was when we got hacked one week. And I don't know if it was through an email or something like that. And I got this call from this guy on a Saturday morning, and it was actually turned out to be David Lamb. David's like, you have a problem. You need to change all these passwords. And I'm like, dude, I know one password. I don't need 18. But I recall, when I first interacted with David, how he took a complex issue involving technology and simplified it for a not so bright guy like me. And it was refreshing to deal with David. And I think the 30 some odd partners of my firm were so impressed with David. We continued to work with his firm, and eventually we actually merged David's firm into our firm. And that's how highly we had thought of David's work and all. And I hope you all find some value in what he's going to say, because we continue to see attacks at our clients' offices, either domestic or international attacks looking for data and IP secrets that some of our clients own. So this whole area continues to emerge. And when I spoke to Yanni about it, what struck me was that, we've all moved to a decentralized office environment. I'm sitting here in my house, and, I should be in the city of San Francisco working in the office, but we're all working at home now. And so that brings up a number of different challenges. And I know David's been involved in a lot of those for a bunch of our clients who have gone from a centralized office hub to now decentralized folks. And so, I think David will cover a little bit of that this afternoon. But in any event, David has a number of different certificates that he holds and credentials that he holds. I won't go into all of them because there's a lot of different letters, but he's got over 30 years of practice in the information security area. And so without me talking anymore, I'll just turn it over to David. And if anybody has any questions, just, you can shoot them to the chat. I'll be monitoring that, and there'll be some time at the end. But I know David has no problem addressing questions that pop up during the presentation. So it's all yours, David.
Thanks for the kind words, Mr. Quackenbush. Can everyone see the Miller Kaplan slide up on the presentation? It's more than just numbers screen. Did I get that share right?
Yes.
Okay. So today we're going to talk about three primary things: information security, the new COVID reality. I'm going to do a demo for you of how we took over or emulated a website and how that can be used to attack you and your friends and your colleagues, and then a little bit about what to do and what to do when coming back into the office. So first shot, the new COVID reality. So the first question to ask is, how will someone most likely attack you? The most likely way that someone is going to get in and take over your systems is through what's called business email compromise. And this is a slide from the FBI website. And someone is going to send you an email. And we're going to talk about, and I'm going to show you exactly how these attacks are crafted. We've seen this multiple times with our clients. You probably see these types of attacks every day. So just hopefully give some education around this type of element and how criminals are using that to get at your precious data. Now, the other thing we're going to talk about is people are working from home. And what's the worst thing about people working from home? And that is people are using their own machines. And in fact, I went through about a month when we first entered this pandemic. I was having a lot of conversations with IT providers. And in those conversations, the IT providers were saying, well, people are using their home machines, but it's okay. And the answer is, it's not okay. And we're going to talk about that and have some questions around it. The absolute worst thing that can happen is people are using their home personal machines that do not have security protections on them, and they're accessing your systems. And if you're interested in this article, you can Google it on the Los Angeles Business Journal, which is where we published it. So let's talk about the major risks that are going on. First risk, we've got some data here from Beasley Breach Response Services. Online bank account frauds, convincing you to release your money, typically via a wire or some other transfer, through email, through social engineering. Many of you have probably heard about the Twitter social engineering hack. These people are really good at convincing you that what they're asking for is real. And from 2017 to 2018, this one company, Beasley Breach Response Services, saw a 133% increase. People are going after this asset because it's a prime way to steal money. It's very easy to get people to click on links, and it's very lucrative. And if you don't react in the first few days, you will not get that money back. And if you're a business, the bank is not obligated to give you their money, and we have not seen an instance where the bank will give you back your money. I do want to throw out that if you are ever in this instance, please save my contact information. We've been very successful through our relationship with the FBI in getting money back if we find out about that in the first day or so. So if that does happen, please reach out right away so we can help you with it. For some reason, you forget who we are, you have to get to the local FBI field office. But we would strongly suggest reaching out. We'd love to help you in that. As with any other questions that come up. Any questions so far? Anything that someone would like me to clarify in our session? All right, I will keep going with that. Now, the other major threat that we're seeing is ransomware. Ransomware used to be, I would send you an email, you would open an attachment or click on a link, and because your system didn't have the appropriate controls, or there was a new attack, or you were convinced to do otherwise, I would get every piece of data you have access to, and I would encrypt it. And if you didn't pay me, the money that I asked for, you could not get into your data. And as you can see, in 2019, from the previous year, the average ransomware payment increased over 1,000%. So, and this is just going up and up and up. So as you can see, 2016, 2019, 2021, that rate is going higher and higher. Now, the newest form of ransomware is even worse. And that is, not only do they say you have to pay the ransom, they say if you don't pay the ransom, not only are you not going to see your data, we're going to release it. So it's not a matter of just making it so you can't get your data. It's making it so they're going to release your data, and that's a whole other sort of pain. And that pain translates directly into money. And the way that money pain translates is, what is your cost what is your cost overall in terms of the breach? And what happens is the smaller you are, as you can see as this goes up, the smaller you are, the more expensive per employee. So in the case of, a small business where the average breach cost, as you can see, $2.74 million, that's about $5,000 per employee, your breach cost. When you're a larger organization, over 25,000 employees, a $5 million breach translates to $204 an employee. So what that tells us is, number one, you want your cyber insurance, and I know you're going to be talking to some insurance people in a future webinar. And two, you want to do everything you can to prevent this type of an event. So what I want to do is, and I'm gonna throw up a poll here, is we're gonna put up here under number one, what do you think is the biggest cybersecurity risk for your company and organization? So go ahead and click through. We'll give you just 20 or 30 seconds to put in the response, and then we'll I'll chime in on what we're seeing here. So a few of you haven't voted. This is good. Looking like business email compromise and ransomware are two of the biggest elements right here. Wait for a couple of folks. One person has put in use of personal machines. So let me talk about these as we're wrapping up. The number one vector for getting to your machines is going to be via email. That is going to be a mix of business email compromise and ransomware. And the major way that folks are getting in is if they're on a personal machine. If they're on a personal machine, you have very little protection to stop it. Now, the third element on here, and I'm going to go ahead and end the polling and just share it so you can all see it. The third element on here is patching. And patching is these mistakes in these very complicated programs that run Windows and Word and Outlook, they have to be fixed. And if you're not applying those, and most of the people we're talking to are not, then all I have to do is have you click on a link and I can take over your machine. And that becomes a very big problem. Any questions so far? All right, so I will stop the share results and then we're going to scooch over. So a couple other things I want to show in, we are still sharing the screen. Okay. The challenge that we're facing is getting worse. In 2011, we had 65 million pieces of malware, pieces of software directly targeted at taking over your machine and stealing your data. In 2020, it's estimated to be 1 billion, or actually 1.05. So we're seeing more and more elements that are very big deals for attacking you. Now, the next thing is we're seeing more and more legislation. So I understand a number of you are from financial institutions, so you have your whole set of regulations around banking. We also this year just got a new law called the California Consumer Privacy Act. And the law gives you an opt-out or sort of a safe harbor if you follow reasonable security practices. Here's the thing though, we see lots of companies, especially small and medium business, not following these actions. And as a result, you're ending up in a situation where you're at significant risk if you're breached and privacy, people's data goes with it. And if you're a bank, a financial institution, you have information on multiple investors, you have a lot of exposure. We also have, also applicable if you're a financial institution, payment card industry standards that require how you handle credit cards. And I will tell you, it is almost never that we go into a client and we see folks handling those credit cards in accordance with the regulations, and those fines from the payment card industry are very, very severe. Any questions so far? So what I want to do is I want to dive in to a live demonstration. If you'd like, you're certainly welcome to play along at home.
Hey, David.
Yes.
Excuse me just for a second. There was a question that popped up, and
sure.
Maybe I'll paraphrase a little bit, but why does it seem like hackers are always ahead of the sort of the technology experts, right? Why are they always out in front in terms of creating ways to hack in when we must have some bright folks trying to protect companies' data, but it always seems like you've got a teenager out there that knows more than some of these great technologists that reside at some of these big companies. So What do you think sets them apart, a hacker, from somebody else?
Well, we have a lot of stuff going on. First of all, in the United States, not worldwide, we're 2 million people short of information security experts. We have right now about 2 million jobs in information security that we can't fill. So we just don't have the experts. The flip side is these programs are very, very complex. The real problem, I think the core problem is that folks are producing software that is not secure. They create the software that you're using, and they're not following security practices. And Mike, you and I've been having conversations about, how do we improve our clients' software code? And some of our clients are using older code, right? We want to improve the quality of that code. And how do we do that? Is we follow certain practices. What happens is you get a new company, they put out something new, and they're not following those practices. And so there are known vulnerabilities. So think about those million pieces or billion pieces of malware we're talking about, right? Most of those malware, most of those pieces of malware are fixed by following these standard practices. So I'm leaving these massive holes. So in order to hack, I don't need to have great skill. All I need to do is go look up, hey, how do I do this hack? And I can attack the vast majority of machines because they're wide open. And then there's one last element. A lot of the hacking is done by nation states, right? Those nation states want our intellectual property, or they want to cause harm. And we're really talking about businesses that have the ability to do enormous research into finding out how to get into our systems. And they only need one way in. We have to block everything. These hackers only need to find one thing to get in on. And Mike, I know you're the voice of the people. How do you think that answer addresses the question?
I think so. I think it resonates that you've got, all these jobs that are open out there. And I think you've got also sloppy developers who don't think about, they can design beautiful code, but they don't think about how the code that they're designing to run a certain operation, how it can be infiltrated by somebody, or how to look at the security side of it, right? They're just trying to make one machine talk to another machine. They're not thinking about security. So I was also thinking, you probably have some teenager with a lot of time on their hands too, right? But I do think, I do think a lot of it's coming from, some nation state, right? Certainly North Korea would be one of them. You hear Russia, right?
Right.
And if you put 25 people in a room and tell them to hack into something, and these are the brightest minds in Pyongyang or in Moscow, they'll figure out a way to do it. So
right. And they're motivated. 8 hours a day, 16 hours a day. They're making money.
Right.
And if you're in an Eastern Bloc nation where minimum wage is pennies, this is great money. If you can perpetrate an attack like I'm going to show you here, and it's easy to make hundreds and thousands of dollars, which is a fortune.
Yeah.
And the story here is so the website, which is really apropos here, is I did a presentation for MFM, and this is their real website. You can see on the slide. And I went to my 17-year-old son, because I had built this attack a year ago, and I said, I want you to make a copy. And so he took that website, and I'll show you this live. And again, you can go to this and see. It's media-finance.com. You can see this is up and running. This is a live website. You can see we've put my picture on here. It's not the live website, but is it good enough? Is it good enough for fooling someone? Which in many, many cases, this is how we see people get hacked. So what do? We go over to GoDaddy. We signed up for a domain, bought media-finance.com. Here's my $21 receipt. A couple of really interesting things. Here's the domain. It was free for the first year. Domain name privacy, so you have no idea it was us. $12 gets me a website and an email that I can use to attack it. And then you're going to say, but wait a minute, doesn't that need a security certificate? No problem at all. We went on to GoDaddy and followed this little wizard for $12.30. We're going to look secure. So I'm going to show you all that in just a minute. And then we're going to create what we would call a spear phishing attack for Mr. Quackenbush, so that you can see actually how that's going to go. So with that, let me switch my focus here on, so we're going to go to the demo. Where did my demo go? Okay. So can you see the Hong Kong Association screen right here? In the screen share? Mike, does that look right?
Yeah.
Okay. So here is mediafinance.org. Notice it's just media finance. Here is fake media finance, media-finance. Oop, I said com before. Hype, mediafinance.org. If you want to play along at home, you can. Here is GoDaddy. I want media-finance. I do a quick search. Gives you your domains, pick what you want. And you can see there's a whole bunch of things that I can pick from. Obviously, I've got the .org, so you can't have that. And I get control of the domain. I can do what I want with web hosting. And here's my Office account from Microsoft. I'm hosted at Microsoft.com. So, and please, as you have questions, chime in. Mike will pass them along. So as I'm going through this website, here's the fake site. I've done a couple of things. I've gone over here to About Us, our team. I took one of our other partners, Andrew Rosen, who's well known with media finance, and I made him director of operations. So I've gone ahead and modified the site for what I want. Now for member login, I've made it look like I'm about to sign in to Microsoft. So this is a really common attack we see all the time. And it's going to say, well, you know what? Let's log into Microsoft. And then I'm going to type in my password and I'm going to sign in. And that's going to, if I'm a real hacker, I'm going to grab the credentials. Obviously, we're not grabbing the credentials here. This makes sense to everyone? If you want to do like oh, we only have hands in this particular one. So please, if you want me to slow down, just give me a pause. If you have a question, raise your hand. So what do we want to do? We want to send Mike Quackenbush an email that says, hey, I want you to check out this publication, right? So if I were doing this publication in real time, I'd be going to mediafinance.org in this structure. And what would happen? It looks like they might have moved it, but I'd come to a live page. But instead of what I'm going to do is I want to trick Mike into coming to this page. Now, what's it say? You got to sign in. Oh, Mike says, that's cool. Hey, look, how nice. I can sign in with my Microsoft. I can sign on in with my Microsoft account, and it's going to let me in and then show me the demo. Now, so how do I craft this attack? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this template. I'm going to create a new message. Oh, actually, if I pop it out, you won't see it. I'm going to create a new message. I'm going to send it to M. Quackenbush at Miller Kaplan. And I'm going to say, check this out. Now, while I'm doing this, if everyone can sort of think about, what are the tells I'm looking for in this to see if it's really a hack. Anyway, if everyone wants to chime in, I'm going to throw it in. Right? So here is the first thing. So if Mike is paying attention, he's going to see that this says media-finance.org. But that's not really a big deal, because what I can do is I can say, you know what? I don't need to show Mike exactly what that is. I'm going to make that a link. And so I'm going to say, I want to go to media-finance.org, but I'm going to display it as mediafinance.org. So what happens when I hover over that? Well, notice that when I hover over it, it says media-finance.org. But if I'm not paying attention and I just look at this URL, it looks pretty cool. And if I click on this URL, it's going to take me right here to you must sign in to view this content and ask. So think about how hard that is to really pick up. And I can tell you, I've talked to at least one of our clients and multiple of our clients' clients who have been attacked by this specific mechanism, because somebody says, hey, Mike, this is a controller from Media Finance. You get an email, and here I'll show you. I'm going to send this email to Mike. There it goes. I can grab it in my sent items. Right? It's coming from mediafinance.org. Right? It comes from account administrator at mediafinance.org. It looks right, except it's that one hyphen. Questions, thoughts?
Pretty simple, David.
And that's what's terrifying, right? Keep in mind, no verification of who I am. If here I am on the sign-in page, everyone tells you to look for the lock. It's closed. You want to see my certificate? Connection is secure. Hey, let's go take a look at my certificate. Well, here it is. Media Finance, issued by a reputable domain, valid for a year. You really have to look carefully to catch it. All right. So with that, I'm going to go switch back to the slides. Oh, I see a couple things. Oh, okay, we already answered those questions in chat. So it's just catching up for me. Let me switch back over to the slides. And then we will take a couple other polls. So let's grab poll number 2. And the first question, kind of for laughs, what's the most concerning thing about the demonstration you just saw? So go ahead and click through on the options.
Can I just click on all of them, David?
You can. Because this is truly what worries me. It turns out the kid who is the mastermind of that Twitter attack that hacked into, you know, these 50 or so, 100 or so accounts was 17. And all he did was social engineer him. All he did was figure out how to get him to click. And so you know, not only is it easy to do this kind of stuff, it's very, very hard to tell the difference between the live site and the real site, especially when we're not looking at it through a magnifying glass. We're looking at it over and over again. So let me end the polling really quickly just to give you a view of what everyone else said. Right? And what always scares me when I see these is I would actually think about typing my credentials into this. It looks pretty reputable. It's got all the tell signs. So the next thing I want to do is just one more poll. And that is, we're going to do poll 3. And poll number 3 is really getting around how dangerous it is to use a personal computer, because this is something we just see over and over and over again and is super concerning, right? Which of these things is actually true? And then I'll talk about them a little bit. So what I want to do is, while we're chatting, I'm just going to sort of knock them off. A lot of folks say, hey, if you put anti-malware on my home computer, it'll be safe. And the fact of the matter is that that's not safe, because anti-malware, depending on which one you buy, tends to miss anywhere between 25 and 75% of the pieces of malware that are coming out. The next item is multi-factor authentication. And even though multi-factor authentication typically sends something to your phone, hackers have been able to get around that for about 10 years. And how do they get around that multi-factor authentication? They're sitting on your computer and they're watching you type your password, and then they ask you for the multi-factor authentication. So you type it in and they have it too. And what do? They say, hey, the banking website is down, but on your computer, they're actually in the background operating the banking website. You can't see it, but they're doing it. And I want to address this turning on automatic patching. So I'm going to end the polling just to share our results here. And I'm going to switch to some of the myths that are of concern. I want to address this last one. Turning on automatic patching in Windows or on the Macintosh installs all the vulnerability patches I need. The fact of the matter is that that there are many, many patches that are not applied by Windows. Like if you have Adobe Acrobat or Adobe PDF Reader or many, many other tools, they don't get patched and they have very serious vulnerabilities. So what I want to convey to everyone here is that using a personal machine is highly dangerous. If you're getting information from your IT department and they're not security experts and they're saying, everything's safe, it's very dangerous. And IT folks will say things like, this tool, virtual private networking, will protect you. The fact of the matter is that if I use a virtual private network to get into my network, I'm actually making it worse. Because if my son or daughter is on my machine and that machine gets taken over, then I can get all the way through to your network and do whatever I want. I can attack everything in your network, which is what we see over and over again. So what I'd encourage you to do is, if you feel that you're using it, well, if you know you're using those personal machines and you're not getting answers that are satisfied, please reach out to me. I'm happy to connect you with someone on our team, and I'm happy to send you the Business Journal article and have a conversation about what to do. So let me switch to the next slide. What to do. So in the long term, you really have to consider providing your team with laptops so that they can move around. This is the new normal. Now, it doesn't have to be expensive, because some of our clients are using Chromebooks, which can be $100 to $130. So there's a lot that you can do. And what we really want to encourage you to do is fact check against the myths that I'm showing you here. So what do we do overall? And how do we get information security under control? For those of you in larger organizations, you likely already have an information security program in place. If you don't, you got to put someone in charge. You got to meet once a month, and you've got to have this bar to achieve. So just like the GAP standards, you have to have a bar. You have to have policies and standards to achieve. Now, how do you know if you're in a small business? What we found is we just 4 questions that you can ask when you go back and you say, well, who's running security? So one of the things I want to make really clear is that your IT vendor, A, is not typically a security subject matter expert, and B, just like you have auditors for your financials, your IT vendor cannot tell you you're doing okay from an information security perspective. So it's a really good thing, though, to ask them these 4 questions. Is anyone in charge of our program? Do we have formal policies and standards that give us a bar? And are they based on a framework? What have we done in our last assessment? And have we ever had an incident, and how do we make sure it won't happen again? Now, this creates the path for when you go back to work. Because what we want to do is we want to address right now when you're in COVID and everyone's remote, we really want to look at that hotspot of, are you using personal machines? And then once we're there, we go to the next level and say, you know, do we have the right protections in place? Are we protecting our machines properly? We see a lot of clients who aren't doing these vulnerability patching that they really need to do, and it's putting them at really, really large risk. So there's a whole body of knowledge. If you take away these 4 questions, you'll end up with a lot more understanding of where you are. And if there's anything I can do to help in that, I'm happy to do so. So let me pop over to questions. What can I answer? And I suppose if someone raises their hands, we can also allow them to talk and ask the question too, if you don't just want to type it in.
All right, everyone, if you have questions to David, please feel free to use the chat room feature. And I know maybe some of you cannot come up with any questions at the moment. Don't worry, we will share David's contact information after the webinar today, and you'll be able to find those information on our website. So I guess our audience, they're doing good.
So I do see the first question up there that says, if you've been a victim of social engineering, what are the steps you take in terms of recovering and safeguarding your company afterwards? So Jocelyn, would it be okay if I unmuted you? Because I'd want to know a little bit more about what type of social engineering.
Sure, that's fine.
I think you can talk now. So go ahead and give us some details as to what might have happened, and because it is in the details that we can address that.
Okay. It was an incident in which it seems like someone got into our email server.
Sure.
And they were probably there. Our IT company did not catch it at first, even though someone within the company got a really strange email
Sure.
stating that some funds were requested from, from somebody we know, and specific details. Then a few months passed by and we realized that they've been tracking what's going on within the organization, and also, as you were saying, kind of like covering the false email domain. So it looked like people within our company was emailing each other,
Sure.
but it was actually the hacker. So,
right.
Yeah, and I think since it's it's something that we don't have any experience in. It's kind of trying to figure out, like, okay, not where does the responsibility lie at the end of the day, but you said after a day, there's kind of, it's really hard to recover the sums that are lost.
If it's, well, the first question, and what I say is let me, so you're saying there was money lost?
Yes.
And
So
has
they
it been in the
basically,
last few days the money was lost?
No, it was longer than that. But when we discovered it, it was probably like a month after funds were wired, or yeah.
Okay, so let me walk you through some other things, and then if you'd like to have a further conversation, I'd be happy to either talk to you myself or get you with one of our team members.
Okay.
So, one of the most important things to do when you find out that someone may or may not be an email is to reset the password and to enable multi-factor authentication. How big is your company?
It's not very big, about less than 10 people. And,
Okay.
and we went ahead and did that. That's what the IT company suggested, and also reached out to the FBI.
Right. So the concern around that, and this is where, again, we have to be careful. Many of the IT companies aren't fully aware of what happens in the attacks. And so they don't properly disable the account. And we have seen people be in the system for a long time.
Okay.
The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to reset the password and enable multi-factor authentication. And we're going to take whatever machine that person's been working on, and we're actually going to pull the plug, and we're going to set it aside until we can get to an expert. And incidentally, we typically refer to a forensics firm who responds in these cases. So the number one thing that we're going to do is we're going to get to that spot. Now, if you're small, you're probably in Office 365. So there's a whole set of steps you can take to go and look in logs to see what has happened and what's going on and who's in and who's being emailed. So there's a lot of things we want to do in terms of email. If you are in a breach situation, typically you're going to want to get to your insurance company if you have cyber insurance as soon as you possibly can. And our side conversation is, it is often very useful to reach out to a cyber attorney who can help advise you, because the insurance company is not necessarily going to act in your interest because they're going to act in the insurance company's interest. If you don't have insurance, then this is a really good opportunity to think about getting it, and we have found it to be incredibly reasonable for the amount of coverage you get. So I cannot say enough to everyone on this call. Really think about getting that cyber insurance. In fact, I was in one meeting at a law firm where the bill rate of the managing partners exceeded the cost of the policy for the 30 minutes that they spent, conversing about it. So we really would encourage that. What you want to do from there is really find out how the attack happened and what you're going to do to make sure no one's in there anymore. Because we have seen those instances. My suggestion would be is, you've got my email on the screen, shoot me a note and let me have you talk to someone in depth, just to really talk about some steps you can take to get in detail. Absolutely contact your local FBI field office. You can report it to IC3, which is the website, but that's generally considered a black hole. You want to get to your local FBI office and your bank as soon as possible. And you want to get someone who understands the nuances of of what to do afterwards to help walk you through it. Does that make sense, Jocelyn?
It does. I think we were just kind of in a stagnant point, like, what are the next steps? And it would be great to talk to you or an associate.
Just shoot me a note and we'll send you in the right direction.
And how to
and
kind of safeguard moving forward our IT's
absolutely
infrastructure.
Deal with the breach first and then safeguard from there.
Mm-hmm.
I see we have another question from Chien. Did I say your name properly?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, so the paying the encrypted by ransomware ransom is of some debate. Initially, our law enforcement contacts were saying, don't pay it, because you're just teaching them to, that you're a victim. Mm-hmm. So this is certainly a matter of some contention. The concern that we have is if your backups are not in place, the ransomware can be absolutely devastating. And in many cases, you don't have an option. What we see in our practice, especially for smaller companies, is that the protocols for restoring are not in place, so you have no choice. Mm-hmm. Now, will the FBI really help? Typically, the FBI can't really help because these are just very, very hard to track. I can buy a ransomware toolkit, believe it or not, on the black market, for as little as $100. Believe it or not, there are 800 numbers that dial into support centers if you want to operate your own ransomware business. So it's very, very hard for the FBI to track down and capture these perpetrators. They do have some successes. In fact, I'm writing another article right now, and in doing some of that research, you can see that every few months they'll arrest someone. But if you think about the sheer volume of crime, mm-hmm. It's really a question for an expert. And here's what we would suggest. I would suggest, get in touch through me or call our the office that's local to you in San Francisco. Let's get someone on the phone with you to help guide you when you're in the situation. And typically what we'll do is hand off to our forensics partners. Most of the time, frankly, folks don't even engage them because it's pretty straightforward. What we really want to do is, one, we want to help solve the problem, and ideally your own systems help you get over that. And B, the other part is we want to help you in the long run get practices in place, because if you have the right backups, then the ransomware is a non-issue. If you're taking backups, once or multiple times a day and you get hit by ransomware, you're like, we don't care. We're just going to go restore it. If you're in Microsoft Office 365 and you get hit by ransomware, there are functions in Microsoft that will get your data back. So the more we plan for this, the better able we are to respond. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Two great questions. You're muted, Yanni.
Okay, thanks. Do we have any other questions for David today?
Thank you for the excellent questions and for having us.
Okay, so I guess our audience, they are pretty satisfied with the information that you have provided to us this afternoon. Thank you for such informative presentation that you just present. And if the audience, you have any questions, or if you want to connect with David for more in-depth conversation afterward, I will go ahead to post his contact information on our website. So feel free to connect with him after this webinar. I also want to inform you that we are going to have another webinar, which is also related to the cybersecurity, but this time we're going to talk about the cybersecurity policy coverage from the insurance perspective. So this webinar we'll be hosting next Wednesday, the same time, 4 to 5 p.m. If you haven't registered, I encourage you to do that right now to secure your spots. And then the next week we will have the cybersecurity webinar, and then the week after we are going to have another webinar which is related to the residential real estate market update. So for any of the events registration, you can go to our website at www.hkanc.com, and we will also send you a follow-up email after the webinar today. Please feel free to let us know if you have any feedback to share. We appreciate that. So if you don't have any questions to our speakers, then thank you very much, David, and thank you very much, Michael, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Be safe, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.